When are you flying out?
Welcome back to Stablecoin House for the next part of our content series. I'm joined by Bentzi from Utila, which is one of the large wallet providers in the space, to PSPs, to stablecoin transactions in lots of global jurisdictions. Bentzi, thanks for taking the time to come chat.
Yeah, thanks for hosting me. Thanks for the AC.
Utila has been a wonderful co-sponsor of the Stablecoin Villa as well, and with many events with the Borderless team. So we always appreciate the partnership.
We should open together maybe a new business for it.
We should do a coffee shop.
Stablecoin events.
We should do an Israeli-French coffee shop fusion concept. Only stablecoins accepted. Something like that, I think, will be the right way to do it.
Sounds dangerous, but we can try.
I'm curious to kind of dive in because you guys are doing a lot with PSPs now. And we've had a lot of topics kind of across the stablecoin spectrum the past couple of days. And one of the topics that we really haven't had too much of, I think, is PSPs and how they view this migration into stablecoins. So maybe you can give a quick overview of Utila, which would give some context for everybody. And then we can dive more specifically into like the PSP usage and where you see the growth and the use cases and things like that.
Yeah, sure. So a bit about Utila. We are a wallet provider. That's like the base of what we do, and we enable organizations to run their internal crypto operations in a secure, scalable way. So a typical use case is a PSP, and this PSP wants to start working with stablecoins. We can also discuss why. And the first thing that they need is a wallet. Okay, you open a business. What's the first thing that you need? You need a bank account, right? So would say that's like the first, that's where we are coming into the picture. They can onboard Utila pretty quickly. It's like 5 minutes on board, and then you can have a workspace, create wallets. We support around close to 100 blockchains today. Wow. So we support like any VM chain by default. We support like Solana, Tron, Ton.
Can I pause you for a second and just dig on what has been the hardest part so far of having that broad of a multi-chain support?
I think that, different protocols, they have like different way of working. And our team was working on trying to create like an internal standard for supporting, like a wide range of networks. Okay, so, from the RPC provider to calculation of, let's say, the value of a transaction, to monitoring things, to make things actually also scalable. So, sometimes you don't want to be dependent only on one RPC provider because it can be down. So you need to have at least another one. So I would say like finding this like mutual minimal language for all of this protocol that will enable us to add a new one in like 2 or 3 weeks. By the way, one of the main challenges that we saw in the market when we started Utila is that, the incumbents, it took them like 6 months to add like support for a new blockchain. So I just said a demo here with a prospect, and they are like a stablecoin company.
Okay.
And they are using a wallet provider today, and they need support for Aptos. And Aptos, it's not a new ecosystem. Okay, it's been there for a few years, but there is barely support there. We added Aptos in like 2 weeks. Okay, so wow, yeah, that's like a good use case. Yeah, so.
Where are you seeing the most stablecoin adoption in terms of a customer demographic? Is it stablecoin issuers themselves? Is it PSPs? Is it fintechs? What's the number one stablecoin customer for Utila?
Yeah, I think that the stablecoin issuers, we see them more and more. I think it's still like a question. I don't think there will be many winners here in the long term. I think that you need to achieve many things in order to work like regulatory.
What do you think makes a winner? Like, what are the 3 things that will make the winners and break the losers?
I think it's like liquidity. Yes, that's all. Liquidity, having the right partners, being the most aggressive. Right now we speak to more than 10. We are now in Europe. We speak to more than 10 stablecoin issuers in Europe. I'm not sure in a year, 2 years from now, how many of them will actually be, successful. Yeah. So I think from our side, we are mostly focused on those who are actually moving money. PSPs are actually recently I made a long list of our clients, and I just saw that maybe 80% of our recent clients were PSPs.
80% are PSPs?
Yeah. payment service providers.
Stablecoin adoption is coming.
Yeah, and if you look at like the adoption, so it's actually started with like smaller PSPs that are more involved in like the high risk gaming space, this kind of things. So, you know, for us going to events like ICE, like very focused on gaming, or IFX or Sigma, like was a good way, even like 2 years ago, to start having this first PSPs using Utila, because, you know, in high risk industries, like it's clear why stablecoins are very needed. Today, we actually start to see like the big players, okay, like the pioneers of the world coming to us, and, you know, some of them are just trying to understand, some of them already have their own agenda. But they also have questions on how to do it, okay? Because there are a few methods on how you can enter to stablecoins. You can build everything by yourself, like using like a wallet provider like Utila, and then chainalysis and build your own stack. You have also black boxes that you can just embed to, like BVNK and Zero Hash, etc. So it all depends on how fast you want to go to market, how much you care about managing your own stack. So it's usually around that.
How have you managed the transition from these kind of high-risk industry PSPs now into the mainstream PSPs? I think a lot of crypto companies are trying to do the same, right? Where crypto started in this high-risk use case, and everyone's now trying to transition into the pioneers and others.
So the use case is almost the same, you know? We just see that, you know, like, let's say for the big players, we see like less, let's say, USDT on Tron, and we see more like USDC on Polygon, okay? So I think like the main changes would be maybe around like which blockchains do they use, like which stablecoins do they use, etc. Which also like impact some other parts of the platform, okay? Because you know, we have gas management for Tron, and we have gas management for EVM chain. So recently we are putting much more efforts on Solana and EVM. But we started with Tron because that's where we saw actually the largest volumes like 1-2 years ago, okay? So I think that's the main change. Another thing is like that the main players today, when it comes to AML, they are mostly working with like chainalysis, for example. And the first clients that we started working with were like more working with like the, you know, like smaller companies like Samsung, Crystal Intelligence. Many of them were like located in Europe. Now many of the big PSPs are located in the States. So also our go-to-market team changed a bit when it comes to that.
Do you think that change comes from the changing regulatory policy in the US, or does it come from some other thing?
I think it's a few things. I think that it's clear that, you know, the ETF moment of stablecoins happened around October last year when Stripe acquired Bridge. I think that's where like everything started. And then a few events happened after that, including like the regulatory clarity in the state. But I can say that already from Q4 last year, we saw the shift in the market in terms of like the profile of players coming to Utila and actually actively looking for a solution around stablecoins.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And when you're talking to these PSPs, I think it's always interesting for people in the room and people who are listening, kind of what is the main problem that PSPs are solving, not in the future, but actually today with the stablecoin transactions that you see?
Yeah, so I would say one typical use case, so we see a few use cases. One use case that we see is like, let's say there is a PSP that is, let's say, collecting money from merchants in Latam, like let's say in Mexico, and they need to pay to a bank account in the States, okay? So usually their problem today is that they are collecting money, they are keeping it in, you know, like Mexican pesos. This money can be a bit volatile, so they are exposed to the risk because they do only one transaction a week, usually like in a weekend or at the beginning of the week. And they have a challenge around it, okay? What they like about stablecoins is that once the payment came in, they can switch it like to a stablecoin, like lock the value of the asset. And then, you know, they can even, some of them are even putting it in like a yield-bearing stablecoin. So they also make the money to work on transit. And then they just offer it to a US bank account. So they are not exposed anymore to volatility risk. So this is like one thing. Second use case that we see sometimes is like a PSP coming, and then let's say there is now in Brazil there are new regulation when it comes to taxation on money that you hold in the bank. I'm
Yep.
sure that you are also familiar with that. And let's say being dependent on SWIFT today in order to move money between the different bank accounts is making them much more exposed to these new taxation rules, because they need to keep more money in the bank over time, and they need to start paying money on this money. And they are looking for a fast way to move money between different bank accounts. So let's say, again, they have a bank account in Brazil, and they want to move, like, whenever they get paid there, they want to move the money right away to the States. Okay, so they will onboard Utila for the stablecoin movement, like the treasury in the middle, and then they will onboard Borderless next to Utila in order to connect this treasury into their different bank accounts in different jurisdictions. And they will just do like a bank-to-bank transaction, very fast, and avoid SWIFT and avoid paying taxes in Brazil. Okay, so that's another use case that we see. Besides that, of course, another typical use case is that they want to start working in geographies where there is a preference to pay in stablecoins in general. So they want to expand to a new geography, and they just want to add stablecoins as an acceptance method. So that's another use case that we see. I would say that's mostly like maybe 90% of the use cases today.
Okay, interesting. This is always more fun when it's a little bit more interactive. Is there anybody with questions? Yes, Amaya.
I think that just context, we're a venture fund invested in large PSPs and frontier markets. And I was curious that the first two use cases you mentioned were more like internal treasury management by PSPs.
Right. Yeah.
And the third use case was novel acceptance mechanism.
Right. Right.
What is the split between 1 and 2 and 3 that you're seeing today, and how do you see that trending?
Let me just repeat the question for the mics. The question was that the first two use cases are really about treasury management, and the third is a more novel mechanism for moving funds. What's the split that you're seeing between 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, so I would say that so use case number 3 is also a use case that we see a lot, not only in PSPs. We also see it in those who are building just a stablecoin sandwich product. So we have also many clients there, and it's more or less like the similar workflow. If you think from the infrastructure layer, because what is happening behind there is stablecoin coming from different payers. You need to create like a wallet for attribution for every payment that is coming in. You need to get a webhook on any internal payment. You need to sweep it into a main treasury. You need to do reconciliation, etc. So it's the same use case for PSPs who are adding like stablecoins for acceptance and a stablecoin sandwich product. From the Utila side, whenever I'm doing a demo, it's the same demo for both of them. And I would say that today, that's most of the use case. Most of the use cases today are like these two, like a PSP that is adding acceptance and a stablecoin sandwich product, okay? The use cases number 1 and 2 is something that is more relevant, actually more to the traditional PSPs that are now coming to us. And this is more like a new or upcoming use case. So today it's maybe 20, 30%. I expect it to grow over time. I'm not sure how many people know, but Boeing, for example, they just issued recently an RFP for their own like treasury management of stablecoins. Okay, so we do expect to see more and more use cases like that. But so far, most of the use cases were like stablecoin sandwich or acceptance of stablecoins by a PSP. Yeah.
So treasury is still only 20 and 30%.
Yeah, today. But I expect it to grow over time. Like Bridge, they like to also to use like SpaceX as a good example for that. I expect to see more global businesses, traditional ones, moving to stablecoin treasuries.
Because you need to be in stablecoin first before you can actually manage the pool of stablecoin that you have through treasury or other money market solutions.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Are you seeing geographical differences in PSP stablecoin acceptance? Are there some countries or geographies where you're seeing PSPs accept stablecoins from their customers more than others?
The question is geographic adoption by PSPs.
Yeah, I don't think that many people will be surprised that most of the adoption for acceptance that we see today is in LATAM, That's number one. Also in Utila, we just hired our first salesperson in Argentina, and now we are adding another one in Brazil, and we have a small sales team, like only 4 people. So the next 2 will be only in LATAM. And we see massive volumes coming there, especially on the acceptance side, also on the stablecoin sandwich side, by the way. Another area is Eastern Europe. We also see more and more things happening there on the acceptance side, Africa, and also like some areas in Asia. Okay, like in Indonesia, we see many things. In Malaysia, we see many things. Like that. That's, I would say, the top geographies. Yeah. Yes.
When it comes to stablecoins being issued from non-traditional banking entities, i.e. Walmarts and Amazon of the world, can you give us your view on how you see this playing out in the next 6 to 12 months in the coin market generally, and the level of acceptance of that, say, versus more traditional banking sectors that are bank issued stablecoin from or the
Yeah. It's a good question. You want to repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was in how stablecoins that are issued by like the Walmarts and Amazons of the world will compare to bank issued stablecoins and the current stablecoins.
Where are we?
Where are we?
I think in the end it will be like in the Chase app. Okay, it will be in the application like of Chase or any other bank. I think that's where we are going to be in a few years from now. I think that today, in my opinion, many of these stablecoin issuance by these platforms, it's more like a game. Like let's see what we can do with that. I'm not sure how much is actually like solving like a real problem today. I think that everyone is saying, okay, there is something new here. Let's do some. But to be honest, also in Utila side, we don't see anything like really.
They're not solving a customer problem. They're solving an expense problem. Because obviously all the fees are going to be using MasterCard, so they're solving their own problem. But in terms of adoption, I don't see the why for customers. And so ultimately, I can see the why for B2B, but I don't see the why for B2C.
I will tell you, in general, when we started Utila, we had 2 ways. We could take the company into 2 different directions. Okay, so one direction was come and say, like the crypto degen way. Okay, we believe that there will be a stablecoin adoption. Everyone will have their own non-custodial wallets. Everyone will hold their own stablecoins, and that's all. Being honest, you can throw stones on me. I don't believe in this approach. I think that the right approach is, and that's why we didn't take Utila to the way of coming and saying, okay, we are helping organizations to create non-custodial wallets to the end users. Stripe just acquired a company doing that. So of course there is a business there. We just came and said, okay, we are more thinking about it in a way that stablecoins will be a bit like cloud. Okay, and in the end of the day, they will solve a problem behind, like to the platform and not necessarily to the end user. And this is why maybe the end user will see some improvement, but the end user will not hold any stablecoins. The organization behind, they will utilize stablecoins to save money, for example, and they need like internal operational wallets. That's why we decided to build Utila in this way, like more for the internal ops, more for the treasury management, etc. That's like.
So what you're saying is that you anticipate this is going to be baked into most payments of BNB and EthCC as a default currency.
I think yes.
Currency going forward.
Yeah, but I don't think that people will have their own.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe one final question. I know you're short on time,
Yeah.
and I want to let you escape from the hot seat. Any final questions from anybody? Yeah, please.
Yeah. So you're also a bit like a distribution platform for stablecoin. It's a way that a stablecoin project distributes their product. Right? Can you give some insight into the cost, distribution costs? Let's say if I was a stablecoin issuer today, working with you, and in order to reach final users, what kind of costs they have? Like in the case of Circle, they have to pay 50% to Coinbase, right? You see that actually distribution is the most important and it's the most expensive part of a stablecoin issuer as well.
So what's the question for
The
me?
question is, what do you see? Like, do you just work with the major stablecoins projects, or do you also work with new stablecoin projects, like you mentioned?
So the big working with is a bit of what it means working with, right? But I would say that in the end of the day, of course, we support the major stablecoins.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that we are working with them in a way that they are like leveraging our infrastructure, or we do any specific partnership. We are like another Circular Alliance member. That's all, right? When it comes to smaller stablecoin issuers, so some of them are actually using us for their own treasury operations. So we have a tokenization engine. They can like deploy a smart contract, do burning and minting, and we also actually launch later this year like a network. Okay, and why this network is interesting for these players, because we have a lot of exchanges, OTC desks, stablecoin sandwich products, PSPs on our platform. And the idea is to give them like an easier access to these new stablecoin products. Okay, so I think that's like the way we are trying to work with these players, to come and say, okay, like you are using Utila, we can also help you to distribute yourself among all the clients of Utila. Today it's around 200, and it's working sometimes. Okay, like it's always a bit like a chicken and egg. We are trying to be a bit like Switzerland here. We are not trying to come to a PSP and tell them, hey, there is a really new cool stable coins that you should use. Like, we are not doing it like that. We just provide them accessibility to all of them. And if they are coming and asking us, okay, we just saw this new stablecoin in your platform, can you share more? So we just do the connection. So today we are more just acting as an infrastructure provider, trying to avoid giving recommendation. Also, we are not doing any kind of, okay, we will spread you and we'll get a percentage. It might change in the future, but that's not our game. It's more like the game of our clients. Okay, so the exchange that is sitting on Utila, they will do a deal with a stablecoin issuer, and they will maybe get connected through Utila behind, and they will maybe settle through Utila behind. But that's what we see.
Thanks, Bentzi.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
We'll be back in like 5 minutes with Rob from Mesh. So don't go anywhere. We're going back to back. You can take your mic. That was good.